our dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition of our program Africa Today. In today's edition, we are going to talk about the 7.4 billion euro deal with Egypt that the EU leaders did seal yesterday to help boost the country's faltering economy in an attempt to bring the stability in the region. Indeed, to shed more light on that, we are very much delighted to be joined over the phone by Dr. Ashraf Roxy, our immigration expert. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
How are you, sir? Doctor, the European Union announced a 7.4 billion euros funding package and an upgraded relationship with Egypt on Sunday as part of a push to stem migrant flows to Europe. Can you shed more light about that?
Okay. What I want to say at the very beginning, despite the economic crisis, the European Union still considers Egypt as a major player in the region, not only in Africa, but also in the Arab region and the Middle East. And Egypt is playing this major role since the 60s. So Europe knows that Egypt is a good player in the arena, even there are some kind of ambition from other countries in the region, but Egypt is still a major player. And the stability in Egypt, which of course it would be affected by the economic stability. So the European Union, out of pragmatic kind of approach that they have to work on the stability of the situation in Egypt, which the economic stability is a core part of it.
Yes. Yes. Do you agree, sir, that the agreement lifts the EU's relationship with Egypt to a strategic partnership?
Definitely. As I just indicated, Egypt, as I said, despite the unstable situation now, and even despite some kind of dispute from time to time with the EU, but they still rely on Egypt as one of the major players, as I just indicated here.
Yes. Sir, Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said that both countries would try to open up legal pathways on migration and that they must prevent the opening of a new migration routes and will work very closely with Egypt to ensure that this will be actually achieved. How do you see these statements?
Okay. The EU and especially Greece are concerned about the mass influx of irregular migrants coming from the southern part of the Mediterranean. So this partnership with Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, and even Morocco is very important and essential. And with Egypt is one of the most essential countries that they would pay attention to putting some kind of restrictions on the smugglers. And this is what Egypt has been doing since 2016, putting a control over the borders. And maybe the whole world knows that controlling the borders of a country is a major challenge.
Of course.
If we can recall under what was his name, Trump, that they had a problem controlling the borders with Mexico, for example. So yeah, Egypt has done this since 2016 and did a great job. And now the EU knows that Egypt is capable of adjusting its borders along with other neighboring states, neighboring to Libya in particular.
Also, Libya, as you have just mentioned, is the main departure point for migrants trying to cross to Europe by sea. Can you tell us, sir, more about the cooperation between Egypt, Tunisia, and Algeria to combat this very alarming phenomenon?
Okay, these three countries, of course, that they have signed and ratified the Palermo Protocol relating to suppress and combat and punish the trafficking of human beings, especially women and children. This is part of the national kind of policy to combat this kind of phenomena. Not only that, but Egypt since 2016 issued legislation number 82 of 2016 of maximizing the punishment against the smugglers, because we all know that those who try to cross the Mediterranean are considered victims at the end of the day. So the smugglers are the people who are supposed to be controlled and supposed to be punished. So this cooperation, not only on the legal level, but also on the information, this database and exchange of information about the smugglers and the routes of crossing the Mediterranean. Because as we all know that since the collapse of the regime in Libya, most of these trips irregular migration are taking off from the Libyan borders. So even Egypt from the very beginning was trying to convince the EU that stabilization in Libya means more control over the borders, the southern borders of the EU, and the EU knows that.
Sir, according to the UN, more than 100,000 migrants arrived by sea to Europe, mostly to Italy. In the first 6 months of 2023, from coast of North Africa, Turkey, as well as from Lebanon. How do you see this huge number of migrants just in the first half of the year?
The issue is that, starting from 2013, the numbers were like jumping dramatically. But in the past few years, the numbers were a little bit stabilized. But now recently, they're increasing again. Problem, as I just indicated, from Libya is one of the main taking off points to cross the Mediterranean. And also the lack of control, as I indicated, that from many countries, even some of the militias, they would take what we may call that, like the toll station, taking some money just to allow the smugglers to cross the Mediterranean.
Yes.
So that's why Europe turned again to Egypt, trying to do this partnership, try to help the Egyptian economy in order to put some kind of end to this irregular migration, which is considered a headache for the European side of the world.
Yes. Sir, as an expert in that field, what would be the solution? How we can try to curb this flow of migrants? And what could be the incentives here that could stop the people from migrating or trying to migrate to the European shores?
Well, the issue is like the phenomenon of migration itself is not bad, but maybe irregular migration on the security level, at least that it's irritating. It's a challenge even for many politicians in the EU.
Yes.
So one of the things is that trying to do this kind of what we call legitimate route of migration from the southern part of the Mediterranean to the northern. So if we cannot stop the immigration, so let's be selective. Let's at least know who is crossing the borders. Because unfortunately for the European side, that many international conventions would put a condition that don't put any kind of sanction or a punishment for those who cross the borders irregularly if they are claiming asylum. So you cannot prevent them. But some of the European countries that may be in the middle of the sea, in the international waters, they would like intervene to prevent these boats from coming to their territorial waters.
Yes, indeed.
So maybe opening the door for the legal or regular migration is one of the solutions, let alone that what the government of Egypt suggested since 2016 is improvement of the situation of refugees in a country like Egypt, for which the European side responded positively and even supported some of the programs like medical care and education for refugees to give them a better life in the country of asylum, to prevent them from thinking of crossing irregularly the Mediterranean to go to Europe.
Of course. Indeed, Dr. Ashraf Farooqi, our immigration expert, thank you so much, sir, for being with us and for your precious input. And moving on with the EU leaders who have sealed the 7.4 billion euros deal with Egypt to help boost the country's economy in an attempt to bring the stability to the region and avert another migration crisis in Europe. More details follow.
Erdogan and the leaders of Italy, Greece and Belgium head to Egypt with the aim of replicating deals already sealed with Tunisia, Mauritania and other countries to stem flows of irregular migrants. That strategy is being reinforced as the European Union prepares for June elections for its parliament. Egypt borders two ongoing conflicts, one in Gaza, where the Israeli military has pushed much of the population up against the border with Egypt, and the other in Sudan, prey to warring factions and under the specter of famine. According to the United Nations Migration Agency, the IOM, Egypt already hosts around 9 million migrants and refugees, including 4 million displaced Sudanese and 1.5 million Syrian migrants. Egypt Finance Minister Mohammed Maid has spoken of EU aid coming of around 4.5 million to 5.5 billion euros. The European Commission insists that the EU and Egypt cooperate in a range of areas. Reducing irregular migration to the European Union has become a priority for Brussels since inflows of more than 1 million people a year in 2015 and 2016, many of them Syrians fleeing civil war, that were greatly reduced with the Turkey deal. Last week, the EU struck a migration partnership with Mauritania involving mobilizing 210 million euros and a cooperation arrangements with the EU's border and coast guard agency Frontex.
The Tunisian authorities rescued 34 migrants and found 2 dead bodies off the North African country's southeastern coast. Another 34 people are believed to be missing after survivors told them that there were 70 on board before their vessels capsized.
The National Guard in a statement said the Tunisian authorities rescued 34 migrants and found 2 dead bodies off the North African country's southeastern coast. Another 34 people are believed to be missing. The National Guard said that after survivors were 70 on board before their vessel capsized, the National Guard said it was still searching for missing passengers. Survivors told authorities that they had set sail from a neighboring country before their boat capsized. Tunisia and Libya are the main North African departure points for thousands of irregular migrants who risk their lives every year in the hopes of having better lives in Europe. The International Organization for Migration said 2,498 people died or went missing while trying to cross the central Mediterranean last year, a 75% increase from 2022.
And according to UN document, some 5 million Sudanese could face calamitous food insecurity in coming months as nearly yearly war rival generals continues to tear the country apart and the crisis is deteriorating.
The United Nations appealed for Sudan's battling factions to allow delivery for humanitarian relief to fend off looming catastrophic hunger. According to the UN document, some 5 million Sudanese could face food insecurity in coming months as a nearly year-long war between rival generals continues to tear the country apart. The war between Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his former deputy Mohammed Hamdan Daglo has since April last year killed tens of thousands, destroyed infrastructure, and crippled the economy. It has also triggered a dire humanitarian crisis and an acute food shortages, with the country teetering on the brink of famine. Noting that some 18 million Sudanese are already facing acute food insecurity, a record during harvest season, United Nations humanitarian chief Martin Griffiths warned in a letter to the Security Council that almost 5 million people will slip into catastrophic food insecurity in some parts of the country in the coming months. He noted that nearly 730,000 Sudanese children, including more than 240,000 in Darfur, are thought to suffer from severe malnutrition. The United Nations World Food Programme has warned that the war risks triggering the world's largest hunger crisis. The war is pushing the country towards famine, with hunger the number one concern people expressed. The United Nations called for more financial support for aid operations in Sudan.
Well, with that, our dear viewers, we come to the end of this edition of our program, Africa Today. Till tomorrow with another crew, it's goodbye. Many thanks for watching.